Welcome back to the Inner Circle Show. In today's episode, we should talk about how we have been left some breadcrumbs by both Ford and Tesla about FSD. We also should talk about what the latest is in the world of Palantir and the NHS. Obviously, it's been a while since we spoke about that. And also Apple's latest product. But before we get into all of that, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications on so you never miss an upload Monday through Friday. So we've been speaking about Tesla's FSD full self-driving technology a lot recently, and there's good reason for it. It's coming a long way very quickly. It's a very exciting time to be a Tesla shareholder. Loads of things going on, and the FSD enhancements that are happening and how that leads into robotaxis is one of the reasons. And just Friday, actually, we were talking about how Tesla's FSD technology was recently approved to actually be tested in select Shanghai streets in China. The whole point of this, to start collecting local data to train the neural network to potentially get the FSD technology rolled out over there, and then maybe an eventual robotaxi fleet in that market. And of course, the Chinese market is a very important market for Tesla. Largest EV market and the second largest of Tesla's markets. But since I made that video, I've seen this article, which was posted on X by Sawyer. And this is showing us a link to an article that was written by Bloomberg. And we can see here it says Ford is 2 years away from offering technology that will allow drivers to take their eyes off the road and their hands off the wheel, according to CEO of Ford, Jim Farley. Now, this article is behind a paywall, unfortunately. But I've done some digging and I still have a lot to say about this. But let's just take a look at what we can see. So the headline is reading, Ford says drivers will be able to take their eyes off the road in 2 years. CEO Farley sees cars becoming rolling offices with new feature. He says vehicles will take over while drivers can look away. And you can see it's behind a paywall, but we can also see that it says Ford Motor Co. is just 2 years away from offering technology that will allow drivers to take their eyes off the road and their hands off the wheel. And then we can kind of see here, it's quite hard to read, but it says, we're getting close, Farley said in a May 31st interview with Bloomberg TV. We can do it now pretty regularly with a prototype, but doing it in a cost-effective way is just the, and then unfortunately I can't read anymore. But either way, let's talk about this. So Ford, of course, are a legacy automotive company, and they're a very successful one at that. Many people love Ford vehicles and they have some of the most popular pickup trucks out there. But they haven't been all too successful with their electric vehicle lineup. They've not made money on their EVs. In fact, like many companies, pretty much all companies apart from Tesla and BYD really, they're actually losing money on their electric vehicles. But what they have done so far, and I think this deserves a lot of credit, is that they've been very, very open and willing, and this is probably driven by the CEO Jim Farley, to actually work collaboratively with Elon and Tesla to actually provide their customers better service. For example, last May, Ford actually became the first automaker to announce their plans to adopt Tesla's Charge Connector, which is of course the North American charging standard. So they were going to add Tesla's connectors to their EVs by 2025. And we saw following that announcement that loads of other companies then followed suit across the board. You know, we had everyone soon saying that they too were adopting the North American charging standard. Why were they doing that? Well, simple. They needed to be able to provide their customers with this ability to utilize Tesla's supercharger network. Why is that? Well, it's the best. Simply, it's the best. And if you have an EV, accessibility to a charging network is one of the most important things. But they also went on to do something else that I thought was pretty good of them, and that was to actually provide their customers with a free adapter to all existing Ford EV owners so that those customers can actually start using Tesla's supercharging network. And like I said, why is that? Well, it's because it's the best. And I loved this because this showed us straight out the gate that there are some legacy automotive companies that are willing to move forward with the next era of vehicles. And Jim Farley is an excellent example of that. And he's seemed, ongoing from that point, really willing and ready to do what it takes to actually move forward into the next era. And many people are very aware that that is happening, that shift is happening. Cars are now becoming more about the software and the technology rather than the hardware. And there will be lots of companies, legacy automotive companies, that just diminish. that just die out because they aren't making the shift. They're being stubborn or they're trying to do things their own way and it's too costly, it's too difficult. I don't think Ford are going to be one of those. And because of the way that Ford have already been up to this point, a lot of people have been saying for quite a while that when Tesla actually license their FSD to other companies, Ford will be the first to actually license it from Tesla. And that could actually now be happening. Some people, of course, thought it would be other companies, BYD, Kia, whoever else, but the majority of people, I think that it would be Ford. Anyway, in this article, he said that he envisions in the future, in 2 years' time, Ford vehicles as rolling offices. This suggests full autonomy to me. If you're going to think of a vehicle as a rolling office, you must think that the person in the vehicle or the people in the vehicle can be paying complete attention to their work rather than to the road. But as far as I'm aware, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but Ford are absolutely nowhere near being able to offer their own full self-driving technology, especially to their customers in just 2 years' time. And then we also know that back in April, Elon said that they are already in talks with one major automotive company about licensing their FSD. So here's the question. Are these two things connected? And are we actually getting the hint that it is indeed Ford that will become the first to license Tesla's FSD, and it's actually happening relatively soon? Now, like I said, there's no real evidence that I can personally find to show us that Ford are developing their own technology. They haven't announced it publicly, and we'd probably expect to hear that. There isn't evidence of them having data centers or a supercomputer cluster, which obviously you would need. There's been no mass public effort to actually collect data and train it, which again, you would need. So all of these things combined, I fail to believe that they're actually working on their own autonomous driving technology. And he said within 2 years. And we know how long, many years, lots of data and lots of focus it took Tesla to get to where they are today. So for Ford to come out and actually do this on their own in 2 years, I think is near on impossible. Now, Ford do have Blue Cruise, which is a level 2 assistance system, that's hard to say, but that's not the same as FSD. So I guess Ford's choices are as follows, and this is probably the choice of many other companies as well. One, they never offer autonomy. I think that would be very, very dumb for any company to do if that's the way that the world's moving, because quite frankly, customers will go elsewhere and they will just diminish as a business. Number two, they have the option to actually acquire another company that are already working on it, or partner with another company to actually develop their own, again, in partnership. Or three, they license FSD from Tesla, who already have a system in place, who already have all the data, they're already training, they are far, far ahead. Or I guess they could also go down the route of offering something that is below FSD, where the driver gets to have their hands off the vehicle, but they still have to be ready and waiting in case they have to interact with the system. But to me, again, that would be just putting yourself on one pedestal below Tesla. But we also know that Ford actually shut off their autonomous affiliate, Latitude AI, because they said that, achieving full self-driving was just too far off. So with all this information combined, I'm thinking and I'm voting that Ford will be licensing Tesla's technology here. And if this is the case, the question then becomes, how quickly will this snowball to other companies? Because we saw it happen with adopting the North American charging standard and actually giving your customers access to the Tesla supercharging network. That happened in quick succession. Once Ford announced it, everyone else seemingly came out the gate and did the same thing. Could this happen again? Maybe. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, if this all does happen, how much will Tesla charge for this? And for us Tesla shareholders, this reoccurring SaaS revenue that we are starting to see take place is super important. Jim Farley also said that this would all happen in 2 years' time, but Tesla have said before that it could take up to 3 years before an OEM actually implements Tesla's FSD technology into their own vehicles. So this could all actually match up quite well, but why does it take 3 years or 2 years? Why is it not just instant? Well, one reason is because Ford, or whoever the company that is licensing the FSD would actually need to produce a vehicle that is compatible with an FSD system. This involves equipment, this involves the necessary hardware, the cameras and everything like that. So Ford would actually need to be working on that and producing that before they can actually put the FSD inside of that vehicle. So Tesla have said 3 years, Ford are saying 2 years, but of course we don't really know when the initial conversations actually took place. But it does seem to me that it's very, very likely that this article is very much getting at Ford licensing Tesla's FSD. But let me know what you think about that. Talking about FSD, I also saw this, which was reposted from Tesla. People are becoming very, very impressed with this technology, and it is proven that it is getting significantly better quicker over time. And then there was also this. The CEO of Xpeng, which is a Chinese EV company, said that he has tried Tesla's FSD and sees huge potential and actually wants to try the latest version. This company is also attempting to solve autonomy, and they've actually offered Elon a go on their own advanced driver assistance system when he's back in China. And Elon responded saying the Chinese automakers are by far the most competitive. So do let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. It's been quite a while since we last spoke on this channel about Palantir and the UK's National Health Service, the NHS. Of course, back in November last year, after what felt like a very, very long waiting time, we got the news that Palantir had been chosen to be the supplier of the FDP, the Federated Data Platform, supplier to the NHS. We then learned that 4 other companies were going to be supporting Palantir in actually doing this, but either way, this was a massive, massive catalyst that Palantir ticked off. Anyway, there was lots of excitement within the community back then. But since then, it has been a little bit quiet on the old NHS front. And here in the UK, since this deal went through, I've not really heard too much either. I've heard about some protests happening, with the motive that the NHS is supporting a company that supports genocide and things like that. And I also know that the NHS rolled out a new system to help handle data and improve efficiencies. But I don't think that new system is really related to the FDP. It seems to be a completely separate initiative. Anyway, I've recently seen this article. So this was published by the Digital Health on the 19th of June 2024, so relatively recently. And it's titled, Wes Streeting Slams Glacial Pace of FDP Adoption. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has criticised the glacial pace of adoption of the NHS Federated Data Platform, the FDP, and has suggested that Labour would deliver a more effective culture of innovation. So Labour is one of the main political parties here. It is a party that sits more on the left-hand side, just in case you're watching this from America. Opposing Labour, we have the Conservatives, which are more on the right-hand side, but a lot of people say that the Conservatives have now become more central, if not a little bit left. And then we have the Reform Party coming up to be the right-hand party. There are some others as well, but just to give you some context there. Speaking at an event hosted by the Medical Journalists Association on the 17th of June, he said that there was benefit in doing things more centrally in terms of procurement, and cited the FDP rollout as a very good example of what happens when you are too permissive. NHS England awarded a £330 million contract to operate the FDP to US data analytics giant Palantir in November 2023, with a further contract awarded to KPMG in March 2024 to promote the adoption. There are 44 pilot sites planned to transition to the local instances of the platform before July this year. That's really soon, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. With the intention of enabling NHS organisations to integrate operational data from separate systems into one secure environment. This is what the FDP is about, and this is what Palantir are so good at doing. Referring to the FDP, Streeting said, I think the pace of adoption is pretty glacial if I'm honest. So he's thinking that it's really slow. For something that is costing a significant amount of taxpayers' money. We could get into a rabbit hole about where UK taxpayers' money is actually going to and whether this is a better use of that money or not. Different video. And is of vital national strategic importance as a project. Of course, the NHS is one of the most important things in the UK. And again, I don't want to get too political, but honestly, it's a mess and there's many things that are causing it to be a mess that isn't just a slow adoption, but we'll talk about that. I've been pretty stunned by when I've spoken to trusts about why the take-up isn't as good as it could be. I think this is very narrow-minded, actually. He said, we'll carry on. He added that it was fair enough if NHS trusts had legacy systems that needed to be updated before they could adopt the FDP. Yeah, exactly. But when I've heard people say, I'm not sure about Palantir, or I'm not sure that the NHS has a really good track record of this sort of project, I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash with me. There's been a national decision taken with significant investment of public money. This is of vital importance to patients. Go further, faster, he said. He added that the NHS needs a more effective culture of innovation around data. I mean, the UK needs a more effective culture of innovation, honestly. Patients ultimately care about two things. Is my data being held securely? Oh, I went all west there. I went all western on you there. And is it being used ethically? Yeah, this was the whole uproar against Palantir about them stealing and viewing data, which isn't the case, but we've spoken about that. The awarding of the FDP contract to Palantir, yeah, here we go. It caused a lot of issues. In February 2024, the Good Law Project, we've spoken about them before, announced that it had taken legal action over the heavily redacted contract. Yeah, we've spoken about that. Speaking about the importance of the integrated healthcare systems, Streeton said that patients were surprised if they went to an emergency department to find that the people treating them didn't have a full account of their patient record. Yeah, this is the problem. This has literally happened to a family member. A family member went to an appointment, one of my family members, expecting them to have certain information, that she'd been waiting for this appointment for a long time. Turns up, they said, oh, sorry, we don't have the scans. We can't see the information on the system. You're going to have to go and get rescanned. It's those sort of problems that are infested into the NHS at this point that cause so many knock-on issues with delays and whatnot. That's the potential here in terms of data. It's making sure that the patients get the very best personalised care. Streeton also referenced plans in the Labour manifesto to transform the NHS app, which he said should be able to alert patients with type O blood type to help with shortages caused by the cyber attack in June. That's interesting, actually. I have the blood type that's a universal donor, O negative, and I literally last week, I went and donated blood because I got a notification saying they were very low because of this cyber attack. And yeah, but that doesn't really matter to this story. Not trusting patients with basic information backfires on the NHS. The app should not only be able to provide this information, but it should be pinging patients with relevant blood types, inviting them to come forward. It seems like we're getting a little bit away from the actual how actually helpful the FDP can be for the NHS. So let's not think about the NHS app and whether Labour or Conservatives or any other party are leading the country. Let's just think about what's being said here, that the FDP seems to be, the adoption seems to be very, very slow, and maybe that's Palantir's fault. Well, number one, the complexity of this implementation is extremely large. This only went through November last year. They will be working on this already, but maybe we're not seeing it because it's so difficult to implement. You've got to think about this. The NHS is a legacy organisation and it has legacy systems. Many, many old systems, old processes and old infrastructure, and that is not going to be an overnight task. So ensuring compatibility and seamless integration across these varied systems that are widespread among the NHS is going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of planning in order to not actually disrupt patient care whilst it's happening. And of course, there will need to be rigorous testing that happens, and it spoke about the pilot schemes as well, to ensure that data security, data privacy is held to the highest level. So I don't completely agree with this article, but I've said this before, the most important thing is that the NHS changes for the better, because patients are suffering for many reasons, and data complexity and how data is actually handled is one of those reasons. But do let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. In other market news, we have had some articles that have come out that said that Apple are supposedly working on their next big project, their next big product. So let's take a look at that, and do let me know what you think about this as we go. So here we are. Apple is reportedly developing lightweight AR specs as a possible iPhone successor. iPhone is, of course, one of their main flagship products that they do very, very well on. That kind of is Apple at this point in a lot of ways. And a lot of people have said, well, we need to see more innovation. We need to see new products. You're falling behind on this whole MR, AR, AI race that we're seeing. But this has come out saying that they are now developing lightweight AR specs, possibly to take over the iPhone. So here is presumably a knock-up of what that could look like, just like normal glasses. Ever since April the 4th, 2012, the successor to the iPhone has been clear. That was the day when Google unveiled its Project Glass, which would later be known as Google Glass, and the video that Google released that day showed how donning a pair of specs could give you smart-like smartphone-like capabilities without having to hold your phone in your hand. So I guess the whole point is moving to even more towards convenience and not interacting with people is to, instead of having your phone and, looking like this, you don't even have that. You just have a pair of glasses that you wear that has all the smartphone capabilities on, which again seems very futuristic. But of course, Apple did launch, I think it looks like the article goes on to say this, Apple have launched the Vision Pro. We can talk about whether or not that was successful. I've recently talked about the latest updates on that and how they are working towards a cheaper model because it's very, very expensive in a recent video that I did. Even though Google Glass ended up failing as a consumer product because of the price, $1,500 at launch, a complicated fitting process, and the perception that those wearing the devices were glass holes, taking photos of people without permission. So security, privacy issues. There still is a high probability that AR specs from Apple could replace the iPhone eventually. It does seem the logical next step, to be fair. Some of the technology that Apple developed for its Vision Pro will certainly make its way into Apple Glass, such as the ability to open the app by staring at the icon. Apple is still has a long way to go before its AR specs go from the drawing board onto the marketplace, according to Bloomberg. The tech giant has restarted its work to develop the lightweight AR spectacles that could be worn all day as a replacement for the iPhone. So we're looking maybe at a 2027 launch that has been discussed inside Apple, but no one working at the company sees the device being ready for a retail launch within the next few years. Gurman says that Apple will need to decide whether it wants to spend the millions of dollars it will take to develop AR glasses or not. But he points out that Apple's Vision Products Group continues to hire new employees, interesting, and he expects Apple will continue to lay out the cash to develop the glasses over the next few years, whilst it takes time to decide whether it is worthwhile to bring these to the market. Doesn't really make sense that they would just pump money in if they haven't actually made a decision, because ultimately that's a lot of money wasted. But yes, this seems to be the next logical thing. I do probably see this as their next big iPhone successor. Obviously, the Vision Pro didn't really have success, so people would maybe think that, okay, well, if that didn't have success, a similar thing in terms of glasses wouldn't. But one of the main problems, other than the price of the Vision Pro and maybe some of the capabilities and the software not being as good as people thought, is that they were really heavy. They were uncomfortable to wear for a long period of time, but glasses aren't the same as that. If they are going to be these normal looking glasses, people wear them every day, all day now anyway. So it could have quite a high take rate. We'll have to see though. It looks like we're still a bit of a way off going by these dates. But what other companies might work on this? We'll definitely see competition in this industry, I think. But do let me know what you think about that in the comments below. On the screen now are the topics we will talk about exclusively on the Vault this week. And if you're a Vault member, I'm going to continue this episode and talk a little bit more about Tesla today. If you're not a Vault member, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next episode. If you want to watch these episodes ad-free, get exclusive and extended content and a bunch of other perks, become an insider of the Inner Circle Vault. Link in the description.